ते रूपम् ऐश्वरं पुरुषोत्तम
द्रष्टुमिच्छामि ते रूपम् ऐश्वरं पुरुषोत्तम
मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो
मन्यसे यदि तच्चक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो
योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्
योगेश्वर ततो मे तं दर्शयात्मानमव्ययम्
श्रीभगवानुवाच पश्य मे
श्रीभगवानुवाच
आ, पश्य मे पार्थरूपाणि शतशोतसहस्रशः
श्रीभगवानुवाच पश्य मे पार्थरूपाणि शतशोऽथ सहस्रशः
नानाविधानि दिव्यानि नानावर्णाकृतीनि च
नानाविधानि दिव्यानि नानावर्णाकृतीनि च
पश्यादित्यान् वसून् रुद्रान् अश्विनौ मरुतस्तथा
पश्यादित्यान् वसून् रुद्र अश्विनौ मरुतस्तथा
बहून्यदृष्टुपूर्वाणि पश्याश्चर्याणि भारत
बहून्यदृष्टपूर्वाणि पश्याश्चर्याणि भारत
इहैकस्तं जगत्कृत्स्नं पश्याद्य सचराचरम्
यहैकस्तं जगत्कृत्स्नं पश्चाद्य सचराचरम्
मम देहे गुडाकेश यच्चान्यद्द्रष्टुमिच्छसि
मम देहे गुडाकेश यच्चान्यद्द्रष्टुमिच्छसि
न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा
न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा
दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्
सञ्जय उवाच
सञ्जय उवाच
एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः
एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः
दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्
दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्
So this chapter starts somewhere we left off in the previous chapter. What is the previous chapter? It was Vibhuti Yogaha. Vibhuti Yogaha is about portraying how Ishvara expresses himself in this world of plurality. The plurality means what? It means all the different forms and shapes that we can perceive through our senses and sense organs. So everything appearing as separate things, be it moving and non-moving, is what was portrayed there. And he gave multiple examples. He went through that, right? We said the shine in the sun, the intelligence in the intelligent, the flavor that comes in water. We can also add flavor that comes in a coffee or tea also, right? Everything is his. So essentially what he was saying is that I am in everything. And he also said, I can keep on saying multiple things, but I've given you just a sample. And he also said, minus me, there is nothing. Minus me, there is nothing. So having heard this one, and so this was what about one in many. Aishwaram. as we referred to in one of the earlier chapters, there is a word called yoga and then Aishwarya. So Aishwarya is what one has seen in many, what was supposed to be good. Now seeing what is yoga. Yoga here, word yoga has got different meaning, different chapters. Here the word yoga means seeing the one in the many is what this chapter is all about. So Arjuna starts here with the stanza. Now he has evolved, right? He's, Lord Krishna has given him a lot of things from the earlier chapters, given him about a lot of essence about Jnana Yoga. And, so the increasing wisdom has come in. So in some sense, he's now ready to see something more sublime. So here he says he wants to experience, he wants to see, a bit more about Lord Krishna, not in his human form as he's seen now, but in a more divine form. He wants to see the divine presence of Krishna portrayed. And that is how he starts this chapter. And so he says, you have been very compassionate. You've shown, you've shown everything about yourself. In fact, you have said that the existence, two forms of existence, right? One is a material cause, one is an, efficient cause. Material cause and efficient cause are both you. And what is the example of material and efficient cause? The the mud, clay or mud and the potter. Clay being the material cause and the potter who makes a pot is the efficient cause, like a jewelry, gold and jeweler, right? Similar. So both of them I am. So without me, the ornament would not have been possible in the first place. That's what he's saying. So he says, in the second stanza, he says that, you've talked about creation and distribution of beings, right? That's what we talked about. You create the pot, and then after some time, when the pot gets destroyed, it merges back into the clay, into the soil, into the mud. And so, your glory also, you've expressed it very beautifully in the last stanza. And how untouched, the example of the lotus. The lotus, grows in all, the muddiest of ponds, and it comes out so beautiful. So that lotus there blossoms no matter where, right? So what is the attribute? If you see the attributes of the pond, it could be clear water, in that this lotus comes. And in that what is the untouched part is the lotus leaf, right? The water does not stick to the lotus leaf. So here he says that I am not involved in the universe directly, personally involved. Without me, nothing is possible. And yet at the same time, I'm not involved in the day-to-day things that are happening in the universe. I'm impartial. Remember one of the words comes in the ninth chapter? I'm impartial to the granting of results. Even if it's a sinner, even if it is a noble person who's a seeker, who's not a seeker, everyone is blessed. So therefore, you've said that you're the imperishable foundation based on everything that happens. And in all of this, there is a bit of ignorance, right? The ignorance is what is not understanding what is, but seeing what is, maybe what is like the Maya part of it, right? Or what appears like a delusion. The classic example in Vedanta is the rope and the snake, right? And there is a rope that is hanging on a little thread, right? In a room, outside where there is a dimly lit thing. A person who is a bit shaken, who's coming from outside, he's not completely full with awareness. A person sees that rope and mistakenly looks at it as a snake, and he is in fear. He or she is in fear. Not seeing the rope is what is ignorance. You can also say that Just like when you see a mirage on a road where appears like water, but actually there's not. It's like an illusion, right? So the snake is an illusion. And so mistakenly, say here it is a mistakenly, but many a times we don't see what is. We get carried away. I mean, you take, for example, in all the relationships, what is not there, we interpret it. Right? We take somebody saying something as something else and put it into our head. That is also ignorance. That is also delusion. The rope and snake example we can all relate to, but you know, we can take the day-to-day interactions that we do sometimes and how much we get carried away by what it is not and think it is. That is also ignorance. But from a Vedantic perspective, we are not talking about those day-to-day interactions. That is also part of learning. But here it's talking about what is this world of plurality that I'm seeing outside? What is it that is making me live today? Knowing those things is what Vedanta is all about. So here he says in third stanza, you have spoken about yourself, right? In the last chapter, everything. Oh, it's sublime. But I would like to see your divine form. This is the first request that comes from Arjuna in the third stanza. And he wants to see the magnificence of it, right? If somebody says, and I mean everything in this universe, how would you look like, right, in that form? How would that form be? Hmm. See, the more and more, you gain knowledge about something, right? You want to see something in reality, right? You want, he has also said that I'm formless. And yet he's in all these forms that are outside. So in somewhere, I know you're formless, but I still want to see you, in that form, in that magnificent form. Right. Let's say, if you go back to our school time, right, when we all learned concepts in the classroom, teacher would say pendulum is like this, it swings, or a chemical reaction, you put these together, gas gets formed, color changes, what was earlier why blank in color becomes blue, all of these things. And then what is it, you're eager to know it. Then the teacher says, no, tomorrow we have a lab, and there in the lab we will demonstrate what was said today in the classroom. And when you see it, wow, your eyes blossom. So similarly here, Arjuna wants to experience that reality in through his own eyes. So now, is he ready for it? So being very humbly, he asked in the fourth stanza, Lord, if you think it is possible for me to be seen by me, that means what? Only if I'm eligible. See, this would not have been possible in the earlier chapters. When if Yavani had requested, Lord would have said, "You're not ready for it." Right? Only when the guru feels that the disciple is ready, or when Ishvara thinks that the saver sadhak is ready or seeker is ready, only then something is done. Right? To step to the next level. Right? Even in knowledge, to step from one level to the next, unless one is ready, it is not told. Okay. So here he says, if you think I'm ready, show me your individual form or undivided form. So here, what was he showing? The divided form, isn't it? Divided form was all the shapes and forms and things that was seen outside. He explained everything, including the Akshara Om, including the amongst the Vedas. It takes everything, right? And so here, if you see, Arjuna is very content with whatever he's heard so far. He's, centered, contented, and yet there is a spirit of inquiry. I want to know more. There's a burning desire to know more. Now, if you have all chanted Purusha Suktam, if you have chanted Purusha Suktam, there is a part that comes right. Etavanasya mahima Ato Jayagascha Purushaha. So that verse, right? So of course, Purusha Suktam is all about Purusha. It says here that the glory that you see outside in this world, I am much more than what you see. Purusha is much, much greater than what is seen in the glory form. And then there is also a stanza that says, Padosya Vishwa Bhutani, right? So there it says that only a fraction of what I am is seen in the glories. A small fraction. In fact, commentators write as 1/4. Let's just take whatever, small fraction. But the rest of the 3/4 or whatever is the majority is beyond what is there in the glory. So here in the last chapter, we heard all the glories of Lord Krishna, right? In this and that. That itself, the sampling itself was overwhelming, let alone what was not talked about in the glories. But Purusha Suktam says what you see outside in the glories is nothing, was much, much more than that. That means I exist in forms that you cannot comprehend with your naked eyes or with your intellect. Right. There are certain things we can see, but something we can comprehend your intellect, etc. So I'm much, much beyond that. So that is what this chapter, therefore, if you see, is it will give a lot of things which appears in form, but also is very subtle. And unless one is, having that inquisitiveness, that which I'm sure we all have, but it's also a sense of deep comprehension. Only then we will be able to relate to some of the things that are going to get talked about in the later part of this chapter. Very, very subtle. And yet at the same time, it will also appear very picturesque in ways that we can understand. So here in the 5th stanza, Krishna opens his mouth, right? And he says, what does he say? Pashya. Pashya means what? Behold. He's almost saying, just be ready to see this glory of mine. I'm sorry, see this form of mine that you're looking at. That means what he is agreeing to show his divine form. But at the same time, he wants to make Arjuna be prepared. So a few stanzas here are making him prepared before he reveals his form. Right. Sometimes people say, right, are you qualified? Right. For example, to go into a garbhagriha of a temple, not everybody is eligible to go there, right? Only certain people who have come to a certain state can enter that garbhagriha. Or for that matter, any other sacred places, right? Or getting close to certain acharyas, you sort of gain a certain set of dignity, etc., with certain things, certain places, in certain environments. So here, Krishna is making Arjuna ready in these stanzas. So one of those beautiful chapters where it is said that every stanza is poetic, and it's there and you'll see it as we chant this. One of the longer chapters, 50 stanzas, beautifully described, and very meditative. If you just even listen to it and just close your eyes, with meaning, it's even more profound. But even if you listen to it, it becomes very, very beautiful. I mean, wonderful to hear, and you get into a meditative state. Pashya rupam. Pashya me rupam. You're going to see, behold my full form. So he says, behold me words, I am not all these forms that you saw earlier. Right. So one way to understand what we talked about there is that I am not and beyond what is glory. You can take the example, for example, of a writer. I'm not talking about today's writer who's writing everything in a computer, But let's just say a person has a normal traditional paper and a pen, right? You write something. You write your poem, you write your stories, whatever you write there. The same pen and the same ink is used in all of them, isn't it? So the same pen and ink with the mind of that poet or that writer is expressing it in multiple forms, etc. There. Now, is that pen and ink limited to what was written so far? I can write infinite things with that same pen and ink, isn't it? On different sheets of paper. So what I see there that the writer has written is just a sampling of what is possible. So it's beyond comprehension what that person has done. It's just a sampling. Similarly here, Ishvara says, what we have seen is nothing. Going on to the 6th verse. He's preparing here. See, he's saying here in the 6th stanza, Nana Vidani, 5th stanza itself, right? Nana Vidani Divyani. Various colors and shapes, images that you're going to see. And the 6th stanza, he goes on to say that, in the last chapter I talked about, I'm the Aditya, I'm the powerful, the most strongest of the suns amongst all the suns in a year, right? The summer sun at midday time, if you remember. He talked about that I'm Shankara amongst the Rudras. I'm, the Maruta, and, it talked about, gave multiple things there, right? And those would have made you wonder. So what you're going to see now is going to be even much more. There'll be an awe feeling. You'll just open your mouth and be shocked and stunned by what is going to be seen. So here, we'll go to the 7th stanza and then we'll talk a little bit more about this one. Now he says here in the 7th stanza, this whole universe that you see is going to be seen in one context, seen as one. How? For this, we have to understand. It's a bit subtle thing. Okay, let's just talk about, right? Let's say that we are all in the temple, in the place where 30, 50, 40 people are there, came to see the Ishvara, Lord Venkateshwara. What is it that makes me feel that there are 30 people, 40 people, or 50 people there? Is that each one, there is one, head to the toe, there is one person. Like that, there are 30 or 40 or 50 people, isn't it? Now, supposing we are constrained by space. And Jairam sir, you have to come together. There is no space here. Because there are 100 more people waiting outside. What do you all do? Squish together, as much as possible. And then, so that 100 more people can enter. When you see from the top, what do you see? You'll just see one head. All the bodies are squished together. So similarly, if I were to just create a vacuum, I take a vacuum and I just suck all the space between them. So what was the thing that made them all look separate? Was the space in between them. The space made them look each as separate people. If I remove the space element, put it all together, right? Which is like literally squishing them. It looks like one entity, isn't it? That is what he's comprehending. That's what he wants you to, at least comprehend mentally. That if in that same place where there were 20 people, now there are 200 people, how would it look like? Would you be able to differentiate? They all look like one. Or look at it from another example. Like, let's say that, you go to toy shop, and there are a lot of these fluffy toys or wax toys, right? What, there one is a monkey, one there is a tiger, one, there is another animal. 4 or 5 animals are there, right? All portrayed in terms of wax forms. It's not selling. The toy keeper says, I need to do something. So he says, I'm going to take all of these wax toys and then I'm going to put it all together into one big toy. That will sell. What does he do? He removes all the outer things, etc., covering one big wax, and then with that he creates something bigger. So here, what have we done? When we look at space and time, Vedanta says it is just an intellectual concept, right? Time, yesterday, today, tomorrow. When does the space and time go for a toss, tell me, even in our day-to-day existence? When we go to sleep. When we are in deep sleep, there is no concept of time. You sleep and suddenly, after some time, alarm rings. Say, wow, it's already 5 o'clock. You think you've just, closed your eyes for a little bit of time, isn't it? So was there a concept of time? Was there a concept of space? No. So Ishvara is beyond what we, put together as space and time, right? And that whole thing, one would have realized when we had seen the magnanimity of these yugas that we are in, right? That my life is nothing compared to the one yuga. Even in the so-called Kali Yuga, I am 100 years and that is millions of years. I'm just a small tinty fraction. Right. So one is the humility of it. The other one is that, that this whole thing of, there's just a concept of things for us to be able to relate to the outside world, right? The outer world, you need to do it. But here we are talking in this chapter of something very sublime. So in order for Arjuna to visualize something that Krishna is going to reveal, he's preparing him. And for him to prepare him, he is slowly getting him to get the thought process that the space and time do not exist. It is just your mental conception that you have this. I am much, much beyond, much more beyond that. So this, if we look at ourselves, right, this thing about how much we know, how much we don't know. So certain things in certain parts of life we have to unlearn, isn't it? As childhood, you would have learned certain things. Earth is stationary, sun is rotating, etc., etc. And as you get to an adult, you unlearn it and you learn something else. You think you know a lot of things, but then as you get wiser, right, in the later part of your one's life, it's just done. You say, I really don't know anything, or what I know is nothing. And it is with that open-mindedness that, Krishna wants Arjuna to, be ready with, right? In order for him to reveal his nature. So 7th stanza is when you look at it, he says, this entire universe that he talked about, right? That both moving and unmoving, he's not differentiating. It doesn't look at, we think non-living means one type, living means one type. But as far as the creation is concerned, it is one thing. A table also has got a unit of energy. The chair I'm sitting in also has got energy. Yeah, maybe it doesn't have certain conscious principles that are there in a human body, for sure. But it also, from a creation perspective, is there. The other thing, you take a wood, right? What makes a wood, you in a homa, when you put wood, what makes it light up? Wood is not wood, right? In wood, there is a fire energy. The energy, the fire principle is already built into that wood, dried wood, which is what makes it, come up as flames when it is lit up. Isn't it? Or when even those good old days before the matchstick came, they would just, what you call, brush the two together for a long time and fire would come. How? So we don't see that, right? And yet it's all there. Similarly, in us also, we can today say that I know that there is water there, there is space there is air, there is, of course, earth element. That there is fire inside us. Not easy to comprehend because we think fire as that fire, but this fire is a invisible fire, something that makes things happen. Just like outside, something is cooked. Similarly, here, the food that we digest also gets cooked inside and gets absorbed in different parts of the body after it's eaten. So, like that, here he's saying that, this, whatever, therefore, what you're going to see, there's there's moving, non moving, all in one place. So, back to that space example, if I were to compress this entire universe of beings, non-moving, compress it, really compress it, and put it into a space which is just maybe, 8 feet tall and 5 feet wider into one huge human-sized form, that is what you're going to see. That's what he's alerting Krishna about. Is that, you're going to see it in me. See it in my form. To see everything in one form, it is not possible because just the earlier part, it was all everywhere. It was like, we thought universe is that, millions and millions of miles spread apart. Here, just the opposite. All of them are in one little space. Entire universe in one place, in the body of Krishna that he's going to show. So the other aspect of it that comes very clearly that one can relate to here is that everything is connected. We think, that, space is separating them. We know today that, if there is a positive ambience in one person in a room, it percolates to another person. Right? If somebody is chanting Om in a particular part of the room, that Om vibration percolates to the rest of the house. If in the temple there is a bell during the Arati time that is portrayed, that entire vibration percolates to the entire neighborhood. People own that, right? Just a flapping of a butterfly in one part of the world has got an influence somewhere else, millions of thousands of miles away. Right? So everything is connected. And so what he is doing here, Bhagwan, is that putting that all that interconnectedness aspect of it into one place. And so when we see it, it is not just mentally thinking, squishing everybody. That's not what it is. It is to see the oneness in everyone. It is to see that, everything is connected. They are not separate. And so he says, get ready for this wonder. Now, on the eighth stanza, he's now preparing him a little bit more. There's a catch, Arjuna. You cannot see it with your own eyes. So here we have to understand, right? Whatever you and I have, right, the sense organ senses can only see, it's limited. Let's put it this way. Our intellect is limited. Our sense organs are limited. In fact, if you see our sense organs and our senses, even compared to, let's say, an owl, or let's say compared to a cat, it is limited in terms of the frequencies, in terms of the spectrum of light that you and I can see. So certain animals can see much better in the night than you and I, correct? They can hear a better frequency of sound than you and I. So even within the space of living beings that we can think about, our thing is limited. And so through fleshy eyes, here use the word fleshy. Fleshy means what? Fleshy eyes, fleshy ears, fleshy mouth. Our comprehension of what we can see, hear, smell, etc. is all limited. And so for you to visualize or for you to do this, I have to give you a divine eye. So immediately when this thing comes up, we think there's a special eye that is going to be given to Arjuna. Not at all. We have to understand this again in a very subtle manner. See, whenever you and I have seen something unusual, right? Say sometimes for the first time we see that there is, sometimes you see, right, in certain places there is what you call water coming out. Then the same water is flushing back and forth, up and down, right? When you go to certain fountains and so forth. And, for the first time you see it, you don't understand it. It's not clear to you. But then somebody tells you, this is a phenomenon, how it works. Oh, wow, now it is clear to me. Isn't it? Don't we do that? Your eyes are seeing the same thing. Another set of eyes are seeing the same thing. What they see and comprehend is different than what you see and comprehend. It's when they relate to you how they've understood it, then it awakens you. You see, wow, I understand it now. That is what he's saying. You're still going to see through the same naked eye. But there is going to be like you can call it eye of wisdom, eye of knowledge, or eye of awareness that Krishna is giving, with which he can see things. This was the same set of eyes that were given to whom? Sanjaya, right? Before the Mahabharata war started, what did Krishna do? Krishna said, he went to Dhritarashtra first because he knew Dhritarashtra, is blind. And Dhritarashtra knew that there is going to be a war. So he had asked this Dhritarashtra, do you want to see whatever is happening in the battlefield? Dhritarashtra said, no, I don't want to get to see it because somewhere he had vision that things are going to be tragic for his family. So then he said, do you want to, rather than seeing yourself, do you want to hear a commentary? So then he said, okay, fine. Your minister, your, principal secretary, Sanjaya, he is going to be given this divine eye with which he can see things as it is. Not only physically, emotionally, whatever is happening in the battlefield, and he will express it as a commentary. And so you can listen to the commentary because you have ears. So Sanjaya was given that, even though he was sitting way, way away from where the battle was happening, where Krishna is now going to portray his form to Arjuna, is far away from that. And so Sanjaya was given that particular. So he say that, so if we were to look at our entire thing, so it's almost like, you've heard this word called, right, time-lapse photography. If supposing, I always imagine this, right? Let's say that somebody took a time-lapse photography of our life. Since childhood, there was a video camera that was capturing things. As we grew up from childhood, babyhood, childhood to adulthood to the older age, and slowly things start falling apart, and then you leave the body and put it all together, and you see it in 5 seconds. How would it look like? That is what Krishna is going to portray here. It's almost the entire space of time. Space we already talked about, compressed. Time also, right? Time is, very relative, right? Sometimes you don't really realize that the day has gone. Next day comes. You think 1 month away, tomorrow some function is there. But so you realize suddenly the 1 month is also gone. So if I were to compress even the time factor into something minuscule, into a time-lapse photography kind of a thing, and visualize it, how will it be? So therefore, Krishna is, first, Gearing up. So this is what is referred to as Divya Chakshu. The word in 8 stanzas is rated Chakshu. Chakshu Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram. Divya Chakshu means what? Eye of wisdom, eye of knowledge, eye of awareness. He's going to give all of that. And then there is a word also he's using here, the word Gudakesha. You see the seventh stanza. Mama Dehe Gudakesha. Gudakesha means somebody who has conquered sleep. Now, why would, Vyasa Krishna be using the word Gudakesha, conquered? What does it mean? The Gudakesha means somebody who is 100% focused and concentrated at the current, they are the present moment. They are right there now. Right. If you think about when that Swayamvara, when, before Draupadi picked this family to marry, what was required for Arjuna to see the eye of that fish, right? And pierce that through his arrow, isn't it? Wouldn't have been possible if he didn't have that Gudakesha spirit or that focus, complete focus, 100% there, right? Absolutely the present moment. Only then it would have been possible. So here he's saying also, don't even blink. You blink, you're going to miss something. One split second, you're going to miss something. So absolutely, so for us also, just pay attention to everything that is being said. And this is required even in our day-to-day life, right? Especially when we are trying to listen to something that is, what you call of, deep knowledge, etc. Sometimes when your mind goes somewhere else, you've lost it, isn't it? It happens, isn't it? So here he's also he's telling Arjuna, Gudakesha. So one is Gudakesha is the name of Arjuna, but that is because of he had to be focused, right? Throughout all these chapters, listen, so many stanzas have happened. If Arjuna was not paying attention, he would have been lost. So to Arjuna, that's the reason Arjuna was considered the only person in the Mahabharata, in the Pandava, brothers, that was ready to listen to this. Why was, Yudhishthira not there, etc., right? This because of certain qualities of Arjuna. So therefore he says, he uses the word Gudakesha. I think today we will close it here. Very beautiful chapter. We'll now, after this, slowly and slowly, he will get into the actual part of it. Okay. Just close this thing.